Picture this. Crisp Detroit evening. Ford Field skyline cutting through the twilight like a promise waiting to be fulfilled. You know that electricity buzzing through the air when the team hits the practice fields in Allen Park. It's that grind before the grind. Feeling. The heavy breath of a city that never forgets its scars buries flashbacks. Calvin's magnetic strut, and that playoff slip-up that still aches. And amidst it all, there's this itch creeping in, this tightness in the pulse of our defense and offensive line. Something shifting under the surface, something not quite settled, and the crowd us. The blue-collar lifeblood can almost hear the wheels turning faster behind the scenes. Picture the linebackers' pads clattering, the quarterback calling audibles with a touch more grit, and then a hush when one of the corners pulls up, lagging behind, gingerly feeling that lower leg like a city wary of new wounds. We all know with this dance is a flicker of concern that ripples through the unit. But here's where it tilts, in a camp. Brimming with promise in Daniel, let's smash the stereotypes. Campbell's fierce run-first credibility. Every wobble sends an echo through the depth chart. And that's before we even drop the first sonic boom. While we're in the thick of our Ford Field winters, clinging to our Honolulu blue pride like the last embers of a Tiger Stadium electric night, you better lean in close. Because the organization made a move that's got the kind of gravity that pulls every Lions fan's heartstrings straight to the Motor City. Dicaprio Bootle and Keaton Sutherland have both been placed on injured reserve. Yeah, let that sink in. Bootle, a cornerback, scrapping for every inch in the secondary, is sidelined with a lower leg injury that pulled him out of Wednesday's practice early. This guy had been carving out moments, logging 36 snaps on defense in the Hall of Fame game, and another 22 against Atlanta last Friday. That's not just participation. That's significant time, especially on a defense that's playing with its collective edges pushing up every down. You feel the weight of that. A fresh defensive scheme from Ben Johnson, who's been dialing up more blitzes and design pressures to disrupt opposing QBs, depends on corners who can flip the field. In a heartbeat, press tight, and deny easy throws. Bootle's absence? It's a crack in that armor, a factor shaking how we map out our back end against that league-wide aerial assault. And as if that wasn't enough, our interior line is taking a hit too. Keaton Sutherland, an offensive lineman who's been battling for reps and blocking lanes in a system weighted heavily by run-to-pass ratios calibrated by our own. Hammer Dan Campbell is also on IR. Detroit's offense likes to lean into that smooth run game. But Sutherland's been crucial in shoring up protection schemes, especially in the high-stakes moments where Jared Goff needs that pocket to hold, where the difference between a clean throw and a pick six is a millisecond of lineman agility. Now, here's a locker room whisper for you. Imagine the coaches during that joint practice with Miami, furrowing brows, discussing snap share battles over burnt coffee. You can picture one of the vets nudging the staff like, hey, if Bootle's out, are we sending the rookies out to drown? Or is Ben flipping the script with coverage adjustments? Meanwhile, the linemen glance sidelong at the depth chart, eyeing who's suddenly knocking louder on the door. This isn't just about injured bodies. This is about a domino effect. Bootle, drafted in the later rounds but already carving into defensive packages, leaves a vacuum at a position where agility and instincts are the coin of the realm. Sutherland, though not a flashy name, has been that kind of steady presence that keeps the engine running smooth. Their placements on injured reserve force a rethinking of rotations, a gamble on fresh legs behind him, and a real test of how resilient this group can be. The Lions have been clawing up from past heartbreaks, from the Caldwell-era's fog to last year's playoff push that ended with a bitter taste. Every injury now feels like a question mark dangling over the future of this season's grit and grind. So what does that mean for Detroit's chess match with Miami? How do you keep the door closed when the sometimes unforgiving league blitzes with elite QBs and explosive receivers, especially after losing a corner who's been tested in battle, and an interior lineman fighting for his spot? How deep is the pool behind them? What small adjustments can Ben Johnson sprinkle into coverage schemes that might just transform potential disaster into something almost poetic? Because there's always that Detroit grit, isn't there? The kind that doesn't just fold when the chips are down, but reconfigures, pushes harder. And if you think the ripple stops here, hold tight. This move shakes positional battles hard. Watch the backup corners, eyeing any crack to leap up. Watch the offensive trenches, where new faces scramble to grab those vital reps. And perhaps the greater question swirls in cap room strategies, personnel reshuffles, and unofficial whispers from rival teams. Could this be the door opening for a mid-season shake, or worse, a slow unraveling sparking more roster dominoes? Next week's joint practice won't just be about drills or play calling. It might be the first frame in a new season reel for the Lions' depth and spine. Something big is moving under the surface of that blue turf. And if you listen closely, you'll hear the thunder. Because in Detroit, when the going gets tough, the tough dig in deeper. What if that injury roster move isn't just a sideline marker, but the first note in a symphony of shifts that forged the soul of this year's team? Wait and watch. Because this story is a line drive, sharp and low, that kind of play that breaks open a game, a season, maybe a legacy. Lions fans don't just watch this happen. They live and breathe every gritty, grinding second like it's soaring with a cage beast about to find its way out. That crack in our secondary, with Bootle's injury officially on IR, isn't just a moment of concern. It's a seismic shift in our defensive chessboard, especially when we've played with fire trying to lock down the pass-heavy NFC. Sutherland's IR move, that isn't just roster math. It's a signal that inside the trenches, the next man up isn't just fighting for reps. He's fighting for survival, making practices now a battlefield of whispers and locked-in eyes as players jockey for the pod. Few clips of game time opportunity that could make or break their season. Detroit's 0-16 go still haunt some corners of the fan base. And yet this current crisis forces us to ask, who really will shoulder the pressure when it hits the fan? Coach Campbell's ultra-physical Smashmouth identity isn't built on smooth sailing, but suddenly it feels like we're stretching that identity thin. Real thin, a reality that could either forge our resilience or expose our fragile underbelly. To teams like Miami, with their elite QB Tua Tagovailoa and a fleet of receivers just waiting to exploit those missing corners. And here's where it cuts. Deeper rumors swirl about a potential trade or an emergency call-up from the practice squad, because no NFL team worth its salt keeps loose ends like these dangling for long. The inside whispers say that Ben Johnson's scheming might need to get more creative, maybe more zone, more safety help, more gimmicks, because the plan's already shifting before the first snap of the next game, and the clock's ticking. Remember how Caldwell's teams used to fight like lions even in their darkest days? We're on that precipice again, testing where the pride's rising or crumbling in silence. What if this injury isn't just a problem? It's the spark that ignites the season's biggest move, a trade that shocks the league, or the moment we see one of those rookie corners suddenly stepping into the spotlight. Because at the end of the day, resilience isn't just about rosters. It's about the steel grit, the grit forged in the fires of adversity. And right now, the sound of Detroit's heartbeat echoes louder than ever. Because if that crack on the back end isn't patched, if the coaches don't respond quick enough, this season could turn from a promising push into an unspoken nightmare, where one play can unravel months of effort. And that's the dangerous game we're playing. That's the fine line between being a resilient, gritty Detroit team and folding under the weight of what feels like insurmountable odds, especially when Miami's offense is licking its chops. Smelling vulnerability. What's next? An urgent regroup, swift roster moves, or a shocking call that changes everything has yet to unfold. But make no mistake, Detroit's DNA has always been about fighting back, about turning chaos into triumph. Don't be surprised if that injury report becomes a catalyst, sparking a mid-season shift that leaves rivals scratching their heads, or if that emergency call to an overlooked rookie triggers a storyline nobody saw coming. Because the next move could be the one that defines whether this season is remembered for grit and glory or heartbreak and what ifs. Honestly, in this city, you see the echoes of our past, Barry running through walls, Calvin's clutch moments, or that heartbreak of last year's playoff slip resonating loudly now as we stare down another season of uncertain battles. The question isn't just what's broken now, but who will rise from the rubble to claim their spot in that blue and silver story. It's a test of our resolve, of whether we still have that Detroit grit, that relentless, never say, die spirit that's carried us through worse, because when the smoke clears, something tells me this injury shakeup is just the beginning. A move so big, so unexpected, it'll ripple through the league. A domino in a sequence that might just reshape our season's destiny. Who steps up? Will it be a quiet rookie? A veteran looking for redemption? Or a surprise move from the front? Offers something bold enough to ignite a Detroit roar that shakes the NFL. And the real question that's burning in my mind, does the coaching staff have that wild card tucked away? A plan scribbled on a napkin that emerges just in time, turning potential disaster into poetic victory. Because this isn't just about injuries. This is about illustrating whether Detroit's heart still beats strong enough to beat back the storm. We've faced darkness before. We've clawed back from 0 to 16, from playoff heartbreaks, from doubts that threatened to swallow us whole. This moment? It's just another chapter, and if we're lucky, a trigger for the ultimate Detroit comeback. So, brace yourselves. It's not just a matter of who's on the field, but what the soul of this team is willing to risk. Because in Detroit, we don't bend, we break through. And this story? It's still unwritten, hanging on the edge of a new dawn, waiting for that final roaring shot. Who will claim it, and how deeply will it define us? Trust me, those injuries are just a whisper wait till the roster moves start echoing through the league. Because this is Detroit, and no matter how dark it gets, we're built to fight to the last. And in the end, the question remains, is this the moment where everything changes, or the moment we find out what this team is truly made of, that rare breed of steel, fire, and grit born from the Motor City itself?